Hi, everybody. I am back. Dom Famularo here for Mapex Live. This is fantastic to be here. Listen, I keep coming back. Al, I'm like a bad rash. I keep coming back, and everybody's facing this is fantastic. We're going to open it up to people to join us. I have with me a special guest, Al Cleveland from sunny Southern California. Al, thank you so much for joining me.
Man, Dom, thank you for having me, man.
This is so great that Mapex has given us a chance to enlighten people with individual careers of different people. And I travel around the world as I meet different people and hear their story. And it's just so exciting what you have done, connecting the balance of the DCI drum corps mentality with drum set. You really have made a marriage together with those that is very unusual for someone to balance both.
That's what I've been told. I really didn't know any other way to do it. For me, it kind of seemed like the natural progression. But as I kind of got into it, I started to realize, this is not as natural as I'm trying to make it seem. So it's been a journey for sure.
So let's go back to the beginning. You were born where? Where were you born?
So I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but at the age of my parents moved us up to Chicago when I was 2, and I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago.
Nice. So
yes.
When did music start to, enter your life? Is it your family musical? Where did this all come from?
Yeah, man. So I come from a pretty musical family, specifically on my dad's side. My father was a proficient musician. My uncle is also still just a monstrous drummer. My grandmother, my father's mother, she was an organist back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, badass organist. And on my mom's side, there's a little bit of music. Like her father played piano, but not so much music on that side. But most of my musical stuff comes from my dad's side. And so pretty much since I was like, I really can't remember when music was not a part of my life. As young as 4 or 5 years old, I remember watching my dad play, watching my uncle play, do shows and stuff like that. And I kind of just knew no one ever pushed me into music. I just gravitated towards it.
Well, when it's around the household that way, which is so beautiful, you can't help but just get sucked into it and be involved with it. So when did drumming enter your world?
Drumming entered my world. My dad got me a drum set, like a little kiddie drum set when I was probably in like first grade or something like that. I didn't really play much on it, but it was really fourth grade. I joined curricular band in elementary school, and that is what really kind of set my path on which I just really became a huge fan of orchestral music. Even at 9 years old, 10 years old, I loved orchestral music, and that's what kind of set me up to do the symphony orchestras and drum. And that was really my world from 10 until as a late 20, 25, 26 years old. That's pretty much what I did.
So in the classical world, I mean, so were you taking lessons at all from different people in the area?
No, I really wasn't. I was studying with the music teacher, and back in elementary school, the music's so basic. Obviously, you're playing hot cross buns and just 8 on a hand, if that. So I kind of I dove into it. I was obsessed with it, and it's all I wanted to do. So I was self-taught at home. My dad came from the gospel church world.
Nice.
So he always encouraged me. He always said that he wanted his son to learn how to read music and learn how to write music. So he encouraged me to do it, but that really wasn't his scene. So I kind of just did it on my own. I did not take a private lesson until I was about 16 years old, and that is when I was trying to audition for drum corps.
So did you understand reading music before that time when you got into it? Did you learn about some reading of some notes?
Like when I was very young?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Started out with your basic, to me, it clicked pretty easily. I was always a big fan of math. I always liked math, and I was able to make that correlation. So, when you're starting with just quarter notes and you're starting with eighth notes, stuff like that, once it built up to, dotted 16ths and everything else like that, it just kind of came naturally to me, man.
Well, that's so great to hear, because it really is. Listen, music is mathematics, and you understand the mathematics of it, whether you're playing drums or whether you're playing chord structures on a guitar or piano. It's the mathematics of how this all fits together. But that's so great that you kind of got that naturally. That is kind of where the gift started coming from, because that's not a real normal thing. Most people struggle with reading and the comprehension of where these divisions of notes come in.
It can be weird, and I think reading music it's like learning another language. And you start.
Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just saw another countdown come down for some reason. I'm not sure what happened. You know, it's funny, as people are joining us now to hear you. We've got John Owens, a wonderful player from North Carolina. Awesome. Ralph Peterson Jr. has joined us, who I had the chance of interviewing him. Ralph is a legend.
Yes, he is.
Oh, my gosh. And just to have him joining us here, Ralph, thank you so much. We've got Sean Hagood is here. Simon Bajaring. Yeah, man. Sean's here. Simon's here. Simon Bajaring is a wonderful drummer from Denmark, who moved from Denmark to upstate New York. He's a phenomenal student and a great, great player. Was a student of mine for many, many years, a phenomenal teacher and a musician in his own right. So they're all joining us here. This is fantastic.
Awesome.
So with this now, so now you turned 16, and who was your first teacher?
My first teacher was he was just a high school drummer. He was a senior at my high school. I went to Wheaton Warrenville South High School in suburban Chicago, and he was a great drummer. He was a quad drummer, and he saw some potential in me. I knew nothing about drum corps, nothing about really. I knew about reading music, but I didn't understand rudimental drumming. And so circa 2006, 2007, the activity was pretty much at its peak, you know, not to sound like the old guy, but I consider the activity to be at its peak. And he just saw something in me, and he took me to a drum corps show. And then at that point, he just gave me weekly lessons to get me ready for my first audition. He has since then, unfortunately, he's passed away, but he was really the first guy to impart into me and give me my love for the activity.
So were you playing drum set before this time?
Man, so I really wasn't, man. I was in a punk band. I was in a punk band through high school. The oboe player, I was in Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra, and the oboe player saw me kind of drumming on a pad, and he comes up to me, he goes, "Hey, man, I got all these instruments in my house, and I'm trying to start a band. Want to play?" And I'm like, "Sure, I don't play drum set, but why not? I'll give it a shot." And that was my first kind of introduction to like really playing like music on a kit.
In all of my years of traveling and playing, I have never in my life, Al, heard an oboe player helping to start a drum set career. This is absolutely.
To this day, whenever I talk to him, you know, I always give him, I was like, dude, if it wasn't for you, I honestly may not have gone into drum set. Seriously.
That is so fantastic at so many levels. So now, so you joined this band. I guess did you get a drum kit, or did they have a drum kit? Where'd you get your first kit?
Coincidentally, so he you know, he came from some pretty good means. So he had a garage. He had a drum set. Like I said, coincidentally, he had a Mapex. He had an old Saturn series.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to Mapex. You know, 15 years old, and he had guitars, amps, like the whole PA system, and he just had it set up like ready for us to just walk in and play. And you know, we got pretty good, and we did a lot of local gigs around Chicago, and even, you know, made a little bit of had some regional success. You know what I'm saying? We were just kids, you know what I mean? Didn't know what we were doing. But that's what gave me my love for not just drums, but rock and roll as a whole. And that's really what I credit that dude. He used to sit me down and show me videos of Nirvana and Presidents of the United States and like all these bands that he was into, because he had older siblings that put him on to. So that's what I was young, and I didn't know much of anything, and man, you have no idea how much I appreciate him for that, because he to me, it felt like he saw sparkle in my eye, and he just wanted to help get me somewhere else.
What a fantastic person to step into your life to guide you along the way, to inspire you and bring this out of you. So were there any drummers that you were listening to at that time that started to influence you?
At that time, I was really, really big. At that particular time, I was really, really big into John Otto. He was the drummer. He's the drummer for Limp Bizkit. Obviously, Dave Grohl, Taylor Hawkins. And then I at a really young age, I used to binge listen to the Dave Weckl Band. It was, you know, it was like, at the time I considered it like thinking man's music. You know what I'm saying? I would listen to it so intensely and try to count through all of his fills and count through all of his grooves and stuff like that, metric modulations. And it really coincided with the whole marching thing. And like, to me, I kind of connected it with the same approach. So that's really what I was, it was pretty much all guys that just bash, and then Dave, who was the king of finesse.
Well, Dave still is the king of finesse. I know Dave very well. He's a phenomenal player and a great educator himself too. But his recordings and his sound is always so clean. So that was a great person to be influenced by, because his playing is so crystal clear and so expressive, and of course extremely creative. So you're pulling ideas from these different players, from Weckl to Dave Grohl. Man, you got a pretty good wide variety there of guys that you started to be influenced by.
Oh yeah, man. It's the one thing about Dave that I always would try to pull from is like, if there's a time to play hard, there's a time to, hit the drums, as hard as you can, and there's also a time to, be delicate. And I feel like Dave is one of the few drummers that when he plays at a low volume, he loses no intensity. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just his technique, he's able to get a sound, like when he's playing double strokes and everything else like that is so smooth. I have never heard another drummer be able to recreate that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But that's great that you kind of analyzed it that way and you stepped into it. So now, were you still doing this? So now you're playing with this band with the drum set stuff, and you were still doing the drum corps stuff, right?
So yeah, if I'm gonna be exact, so I got in the band. I started the band when I was about 14 years old. I was doing 2 symphony orchestras at the same time. Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra and Youth Symphony Orchestra of DuPage County. So I was doing both of those. That's how I met this guy. His name is Brian Schweppe. Shout out to Brian Schweppe. Met him, and I got in the band. So I was 14. I marched Capital Regiment out of, where were they out of? It's been so long. Capital Regiment, they were out of Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and I was 15. So I was still playing in the band, but during the summers and during the winter camps, obviously I was tied into that. And it really, drum corps didn't really become my life until I took 1 year off in 2007, because I wasn't sure that drum corps was for me. I thought it was maybe something that you just did for 1 year and then went on with your life. But then I got introduced to the Santa Clara Vanguard, and I picked it right back up and did another 2 years with them, 2008 and 2009.
Fantastic. So now you're I'm not sure. Are you familiar with who Dennis DeLucia is?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. He's a legend.
He's an incredible, and I had the chance of interviewing Dennis. I have a YouTube channel called The Sessions Panel. And on the Sessions Panel on YouTube, if you get a chance, go to The Sessions Panel. And then in the search there, put in Dennis. There's probably over 90 drummers that are on there, but I've got bass players and guitar players and Chick Corea and Steve Vai. I've got all different, well-known musicians there. But I interviewed Dennis DeLucia. And if you get a chance, go back and listen to Dennis, because he also was a drum set player that got involved in drum corps. And his story is fantastic. He is a legend, and he's one of the only people that is in every Hall of Fame in the percussion field that you can imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you get a chance to go check it out, because you'll get a real idea of how he stepped into this world. As you are now, you are this next generation that's continuing in this drum corps mentality of what's happening. And there are some serious players in that.
Yes, there are. There really are, man. Honestly, I know some of the guys, I was always the youngest guy in the line. You know what I'm saying? Like they call it world class now, but back, they used to call it Division I. And I got in Division I drum corps. Like I said, I did my first audition when I was 15. And so I was always, and then when I got to Santa Clara Vanguard, that was such a high level corps. I was always the youngest guy. And some of these guys, they would push me so hard.
Yeah.
I did not understand how they were able to just, like a switch, turn their hands on 9 o'clock in the morning. No, no, nothing. They could just play, and they expected me to just play and have it right. So honestly, even after all this time, like I still take that mentality when I go into a rehearsal. I like to be the utmost prepared. Even if I know it's going to be kind of a lax rehearsal, we're going to kind of fumble through the songs. I just don't know any other way but to just be optimally prepared on the first rehearsal.
Well, what a great personal constitution you have, because that really is where success lies, in preparation, that you can go there and you're 100% ready to hit the ground running. That is huge.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Boy, that's really, really good. So tell me about now. So now, When did you start working with different artists on the road and traveling? How'd that all come in?
So I went to Berklee College of Music, and right out of college, um, the president of the school, Roger Brown, he had got a call from Quincy Jones in his camp saying that he was looking for a young band that could do a little bit of swing, but also could do some pocket groove stuff for this new artist that he had discovered named Nicky Yanofsky. And a mutual friend of mine had heard about that call to Roger Brown and just put my name in and asked me to go do the audition. And I was like, I got nothing else to do. I had never heard of the girl, but I heard Quincy Jones. So I was like, I'll definitely go to this audition. Really wasn't very well versed in swing. Obviously Berklee jazz is a huge part of the curriculum at Berklee, and I took all those classes. I was definitely into it. My mind was just in a lot of different places musically at the time. I didn't major in performance, so playing drums every day was not really what I was going on, with what I was doing. Yeah. But by the time I graduated, I got pretty serious about drums, and I just gave it a shot, and I got the audition, and the audition went so well, they asked me to come to Montreal the next week to record her new record that was coming out. So that kind of created a relationship with Nicky Yanofsky and Quincy Jones and Rod Temperton. Got to learn a lot from those guys.
Wow.
I went from being in college, having no gigs, to traveling the entire world doing jazz fest in front of more people than I'd ever, mine is drum corps. You do a drum corps show and you're in front of, 80,000 people, but you're also on the field with 130 other people.
Yeah.
But, just a kid from Chicago, never really did much outside of drum corps. And next thing you know, I'm in Nice, France, playing the Nice Jazz Festival. I'm doing the Montreal Jazz Festival. And this went on for, a good three and a half years where, they kept us working, they kept us on the road. And at 23 years old, I was having a blast. And that's what kicked off my, quote unquote industry career.
Boy, this is so beautiful to hear. And Roger Brown, who I know, who happens to also be a good drummer.
Yes, he is. He's a great drummer.
Absolutely. So in the process now, from Berklee, you hit the road. What was it like when you got called? I mean, this is Quincy Jones. In our industry, it does not get any bigger or deeper than Quincy Jones.
No, it doesn't.
And I used to go back and hear Quincy playing trumpet with the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Big Band in New York at the Village Vanguard many, many years ago.
Wow.
Sure. I go back a long time with Quincy. So what happened now when you did that audition? You get the call. Where was the audition? You had a flight up, was it in Montreal?
Oh, so the audition, they actually set the audition up at Berklee I believe it was the 1140 building, which is it's a really nice building on campus at Berklee. It was in the basement in one of the ensemble rooms. I kid you not, it was Nicky Yanofsky herself. She was there because she was singing with the different ensembles that were auditioning, and her manager, and it was just them two. And
who was your manager? Who was your manager at the time?
Her manager, his name was Scott Morin.
Interesting.
He's a cat from Toronto.
Yeah.
Real nice guy. But yeah, it was just those two. And man, down between me and you, I was when I got the audition music and I saw the criteria and I saw the swing tunes, I didn't think I was gonna get it because I know some of my friends are just so proficient at jazz. I just knew they were gonna go in there and rip that thing down, and I was just gonna get left in the dust. So I actually went to the audition. It's college. We're in college. I went to the audition in my pajamas. Just because I was like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep at night if I don't go to this thing. So I'm gonna go, and I'm not gonna stress about it. I'm just gonna go and play. And they ended up liking me, man. So
that is so amazing.
Yeah, there were no nerves at all because I just kind of went in there. It's like I'm gonna do this to say that I did it.
So what was the jazz stuff like? Was it straight ahead stuff, or was it kind of pop jazz?
So her music was mostly pop jazz based, not smooth jazz, but more like kind of contemporary, like you said, pop jazz. But there, in her repertoire, she does do a lot of not straight ahead, but she does a lot of jazz ballads that require brushes and stuff like that. And I really had to pick those skills up very quickly, and I was very bad at it at first. Fast forward, my friend Jeff Lang, who I talked to you about earlier, he actually on the road taught me how to play brushes correctly.
We got to talk about Jeff. Jeff is a dear friend from the Montreal area. He's a phenomenal musician. He's a phenomenal drummer, and he's a great, great person with a wonderful family too. Jeff actually has joined us here. I can see him popping up in here. He says, "Hey, Dom and AC." Here's Jeff right here. Just
what's up, Jeff?
Here he is right here, man. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about it. So Jeff, you're on the road. So Jeff, who's a phenomenal player, starts showing you jazz stuff on the road.
On the road, man. On the road. This guy was he was not, after all, I've been touring. I've been on the road now prior to COVID. I've been on the road for 7 years straight. Just cranking it out. And I've never had a tour manager that's imparted more into me. Like that guy, it's like he felt like he could see me going somewhere to a higher level, and he just took time with me, man. Like he did his job really, really well as a tour manager, but I knew what he could do on drums. Yeah. So I would just pick his brain. I would just ask him questions, and he was always happy to answer questions. And he would just sit me down and be like, "Hey, man, this how you go in a circular motion, or you could do it like this. Find what's comfortable for you. It's just going to take some reps." And if it wasn't for him, man, I probably would have been sounding ridiculous on those questions.
I had the chance of spending many, many years with Jeff each year at the COSA camp that Aldo Mazzo would do. Aldo Mazzo is a wonderful drummer from Canada in Montreal area. He organized a camp that was in the Vermont area, and Jeff would come every year, and we'd hang, we'd talk, we'd learn all different players. And Jeff is really a very wise and a very knowledgeable person. So you really lucked out by hooking with Jeff.
And me and Jeff are still close. Like I said, Jeff was the first person when I moved to Los Angeles. He's like, "Man, you need to hook up with Dom, man." And I was a little intimidated because I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm like, I'm not just gonna call this guy, and he had no idea who I am,
If Jeff says just call, you get on the phone, you just call me anytime for sure, man. That's absolutely fantastic. So you're on the road now. Now you ended up traveling. I mean, Leanne Rimes, Rich Brian, Anthony Ramos, Bryce. You got a lot of acts that so what happened? How'd you start to hook up with these acts and meet to continue being on the road?
So when I was doing the Nicky Yanofsky gig, we were doing so much traveling. We were going to Europe a whole lot because, unfortunately, jazz is not as big in America these days as it is overseas. So we were doing a lot of stuff in Asia, a lot of stuff in Europe, and that was all going really great. And I just kind of realized, what? I think I can do this for a living. I think I can make a career out of this. And I realized that living in Boston, I just wasn't going to be able to make that happen. So, I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, I really need to give this a shot. And she supported me 100%. Wow. And I picked up my stuff and moved to Sherman Oaks, California, and just kind of started going to the different hangs. And the next thing I was doing the Today Show. Like I honestly don't even know how it happened. I was there for 3 months, no gigs at all. And then all of a sudden, just like that, I just started getting calls. And kind of at my start, I was doing a lot of TV shows like, this Tonight Show and Today Show, Wendy Williams and stuff like that. Just kind of on call, just coming in, getting the job done and going out. I was not really committed to one artist at the time. So it wasn't really until about 2017, I started playing with Skip Marley. And that was a really, really cool experience because that was like kind of my first, he's reggae based, but he's very much in the machine industry pop world. And that was kind of my first experience to how that whole thing works. And at that point, man, it's pretty simple. Like you do a good job on one gig and your music director is either going to call you for something different or someone you play in front of is going to ask your availability and see if you're interested about playing for someone else. It's literally that simple.
Well, that really is the networking process of our industry that, again, we say pre-COVID, in the way it was working when everyone's out there, you're meeting people, you're performing, you're playing, but even being out in LA. So did you know anybody in Sherman Oaks when you moved out to LA?
So luckily I did. Man, one of my best friends, his name is Jeff Kinsey. He's a phenomenal bass player. We came up playing at 2010. We were just kids, man, playing in this church in Boston that was held out of a hotel, and we just hit it off. And we both had a love for old school, early 90s alternative rock, like grunge. We both loved it, and we used to play like that in church. And basically, he said he was from California, and he said, hey man, after we graduate, I think I'm going to move back home and do the LA thing. And I said to him, I was like, I'd like to do that, but I'd love to save a bunch of money before going there because I got no gigs. And he says, hey man, my parents got an extra room. If you want to come with me, we'll just stay at my parents' house until we get on our feet and they're going to get an apartment. And so we just rolled out there together. And it took us about 3 months. And, we got an apartment in Sherman Oaks. So, I wasn't alone, but we were kind of alone together.
Boy, fantastic to have that kind of support to go at the now. Your girlfriend, did she end up coming out with you?
So no, we did long distance for about 3 years.
Because now you're trying to balance relationships with developing your art, the business of trying to get some work. Now you got relationship that, so you're juggling all of this.
And yes, and I think when a lot of times when people hear that, they think that it's just the hardest thing in the world. She's my wife now. Me and my wife have a great relationship, and we took that long distance as a challenge to. When you're sitting at home with your girlfriend, you can kind of read each other's cues and body language, stuff like that. When we didn't have that, all we could depend on solely was communication, and we got really, really good at communicating and talking and being able to work through any issues we may have had, and also show affection for one another just by talking. And it actually strengthened our relationship, maybe more than it would have if we were just in the same room every day.
Nice. Well, with COVID, you're in the same room every day now. So
yeah.
The real test is.
Oh yeah. And we have he'll be 11 months in a week. We got a little guy.
I remember when it was born. That was fantastic several months ago. Congratulations. That's just so beautiful. So now here you are balancing this wonderful family. And now COVID hits, you got all this traveling going on. What happened now when it hit? You're back home, you got a place that you have that you can record from. How'd you set this all up?
So at the top of COVID, I don't think my story is very original. I know every musician got hit. Like our entire year got destroyed in the first quarter. This year was going to be a really, really, really exciting year for me, festival wise, touring wise. I had the entire year booked out. So initially when COVID hit, it was a blow, and I just needed to I took about 2 weeks to kind of just process what happened, and at that point I realized, what, I didn't spend my entire life working at something to just give up. So I had some money stashed away, and I just started slowly building out a studio so that I could continue my craft from a remote situation, and with the help of a few friends that are in the industry that were already tapped into remote union sessions and stuff like that, guys out of New York. They helped me, and some guys set me up with templates via Logic so that I could do remote sessions, and set me up with the plugins that I needed for Zoom and stuff like that. And it took if I took 2 weeks to kind of sulk, after that, when I started being productive, it took me maybe a month to get fully up and running. I was blessed. I was able to build out a old recording studio that was gutted out in a warehouse. My buddy, his late father was the first tenant of that warehouse back in like the 80s. So the owner gave us a deal for $135 a month.
Oh my gosh.
To have a full-blown studio. So I just luck. I really, God's grace, luck, whatever you want to call it. It just worked out because you know how much it costs to rent out a studio if you don't have.
Big time. If you had to rent the place out, and then if you had to pay insurance and all that stuff that goes with it, you have an incredible opportunity there. So the studio is, how big is the studio?
I don't know the square footage, but it's got your control room, it's got a live room, and then it's got a drum room that is cement, and it protrudes off the side of the building, so it's completely isolated, and no sounds getting in, no sounds getting out, and it's a big room, so we get like, man, when I tell you I'm so fortunate, I get really, really, really good drum sounds out of there. Wow. After the very first session that I did, that kind of snowballed into getting some consistent sessions, and with the help of a few friends, I was able to kind of get linked into doing the drum lesson thing from remotely on kit and on pad.
Right.
And yeah, man, that's basically where I am now. I just took a little bit of time to piece it out, piece by piece. I didn't want to just go and just spend $6,000, $10,000 on a bunch of gear, but I just, some things were gifted to me. Some things I got used, some things I got brand new, and next thing you know, I was up and running, man.
So I got to get this right. So now, so you're able to record tracks for people, and so you're doing that from the studio.
Yes, sir. And I'm doing that. I'm not, and the cool thing is I'm not just. I feel like in the past, you would people would send you tracks, you would record, and then send them, send them the stems, send them the audio files, and then they would do what they want. Now, with all the technology, literally the first session I had, it blew my mind because the producer, I granted him access to my Zoom and to my computer, and I just took my hands away, and he ran the entire session. He put all the plugins in. He did everything. I just had to make sure that I had them. I got my ears in. He's talking to me real time. He's listening, giving me cues while I'm playing. It felt like I was right in like a regular recording studio.
Boy, how times have changed. So you're able to play and do it. It's about as live as you can get close to in that situation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, it blew my mind. It kind of freaked me out when I just see my mouse moving and clicking all this stuff. I'm like, wait, this probably could lead to some other stuff. Like, so yeah, man, I'm fortunate, man. It's really cool.
So now, what about doing some lessons and stuff like that?
Yeah, doing lessons, man. So prior to COVID, most of the lessons I was giving were because it's my forte. Guys that were trying to get ready to audition for drum corps.
Right.
I work with them a little bit of technique stuff, but really more so just kind of like approach and how to nail an audition. Because I think that was always my big thing. Like, I know how to go into an audition and not get cut. You know what I'm saying? So I would try to give them as many tools as possible, help them through whatever exercises they were working through. And, all the guys that I worked with had great success. And I'm proud of that, because no better feeling than giving knowledge and seeing that knowledge applied and seeing, your kid have some success. So now with COVID, it's honestly, the students are a little bit younger, working on very, very basic stuff, technique once again, but not so much technique because they don't really get that. And I'm not talking about 5, 6 years old. I'm talking like 12, 13,
Okay.
So we're doing, 8 on a hand, working on double strokes, working on how to get a full sound, a full tap sound and stuff like that, buzz rolls and stuff, whatever they want to work on. And just concepts and approaches, man. And that's about it.
I think what's great is, listen, you are very articulate. You understand the drum corps and the drum set art forms so well that you can balance back and forth, and you can pull probably from some drum set ideas that can help some drum corps ideas, and you can steal from some of the drum corps ideas to help with the drum set stuff.
100%. I was fortunate to learn under the great Murray Gussick and Glenn Crosby, who's also a Mapex artist. Those guys, the reason I went to Santa Clara Vanguard is because they were unlike any other drum corps where they approached their entire sound. It sounded like 15 dudes playing drums. They didn't have a brittle sound. They didn't have a harsh touch. It was a very warm, crystal clear sound, and even their technique was applicable. You could play like that on drum set. Whereas I love all DCI groups, literally. But some of the groups, it's tough to take that technique and try to sit on a drum set and play like that. So I gravitated towards them. So it was pretty easy for me to make the transition and apply just kind of like the militant, the militant dedication to timing, just not wavering on your timing.
Right.
That alone, and then also just pushing through things that you think you can't do. You just have to keep pushing till you figure it out. And those two things coming from the drum corps world has served me greatly on the drum set.
Well, it really is amazing in what you have done and what you continue to do. Check this out. Your mom and I are watching. We are so proud of you. How deep is this? That from a computer or a phone or a tablet, wherever they are, they're able to watch this. That's so beautiful.
They're in Chicago.
They're in Chicago. That's fantastic to experience.
What's up, Didi? What's up, Ma?
Beautiful, just beautiful. So let's talk about the drums that you have behind you now. You got which Mapex kit is that you have stacked up behind you? What drum set is that?
This is the brand new line of the Saturn series that just came out, and I actually just received these in the mail not too long ago, maybe two weeks or so. I'm breaking them out today. I have a session today at 4th Street Recording Studios in Santa Monica, and we'll be doing some content for Mapex while I'm there. So yeah, man, it's a 20-inch kick, 16, 14, 12, 10, and I tuned them up last night. These babies sound incredible. I had a Saturn series before, which was the older line. I loved that one. I didn't think it could get any better, honestly. Mapex makes a lot of great kits. For me and for the sound that I go for, the Saturn series really fits my vibe. So, that's why I stick with them.
Well, it's funny you say that. I also am a huge fan of the Saturn series, which I have 2 kits behind me in my studio, and they just sound great. The shells, the tone, easy to be tuned. They hold their tuning. The hardware is so great. I get any position that I need. It really is so great to have that level of flexibility, and just to have that sound that the shell gives is just so beautiful. So you said a 20-inch bass drum. You like a 20-inch?
So you know what? I love a 22, and for a lot of gigs I do use a 22. I like to alternate between 22 and 20s because 20s they give you a little more punch. You know what I'm saying? You can still get the same warmth, and you can get those big tones, especially when you're playing in a theater or above.
Yeah.
When they mic that thing up and you're coming through 8 subs, you're gonna get that boom. Yeah. But when you're trying to do a little more finesse stuff, for me, it's a little easier to kick it out at high velocities on a 20-inch. And like I said, I love the punchiness of a 20. So right now, my other Saturn series is it's a 22. But I asked my man Mark Bennett. Shout out to Mark Bennett, he's the man. I asked him if we can go for a 20 this time, and he said, "You got it, man." So I'm really looking forward to recording on these babies today. It should be a lot of fun.
Oh, that'll be great to get some feedback on it. Mark Bennett, who is A&R for Mapex, is just a phenomenal knowledgeable person, and he was a tech for so many bands as he was traveling. So he's
everyone.
He's got so much knowledge, and he's right there with us. What a great guy to have behind the scenes. We tend to forget about these people behind the scenes that are helping us to find the right sound and get the drums. And Mark is absolutely the man to do that.
And he is also a Santa Clara Vanguard alumni as well.
Yes, he is, and he's got great hands. I mean, it really is so great to see.
Mark's the man. I love that dude, man.
Great guy. Talk about what you have over here now. What else you got behind you?
So this is a set of Mapex quads, or some of the purists call them tenor drums or whatever. But basically, we got a 10, 12, 13, 14, and then 2 Spock drums. A lot of guys only use 1, but I figured, I'm not marching in drum corps anymore, so just give me all the goods, man. So I'm actually going to be using these as well today in my session. I'm going to be doing some quad and drum set stuff, kind of incorporating the 2. And these wraps were made specifically for me from the guys over at Mapex. We picked out a couple different colors, and I really love the finish on them. Obviously, the Mapex quads are my favorite sound because just like the Saturn series, they hold tuning really, really well. They're punchy. So, if you're in drum corps, they're going to cut straight through the horns, but they have a warm tone. And I think that's rare in the DCI community. Either you have really dry sounding quad drums that, unless you're playing at triple forte, you're just not going to hear them. Or you have, I'm not going to name any names, but you have some companies where quad drums just resonate for too long, and it just sounds a little overbearing and a little cheesy to me. These guys, these puppies are. This is where it's at.
Well, it's amazing to see that how Mapex has widened their scope of going from jump to the marching stuff. I've got a Mapex marching snare drum in here that just sounds so great. And just it's such a big sound that it's just so exciting to have that. And I have the marching drum in here. When I work on reading exercises with students, we go to that drum and we work on there. So they're actually playing on a Mapex snare drum while they're working on rudimental reading stuff.
That's awesome.
Are there any specific exercises that you use on the quads that you practice with? And then does that, can you incorporate some of that stuff to the drum set?
Absolutely. So the funny thing is man, is like, if I can just say this, there are certain things that you can take from DCI rudimental drumming drum set. I'm sorry, DCI rudimental drumming drum corps stuff that are directly applicable to the drum set. There are certain things that are not so applicable.
Right.
So essentially, like, as far as exercises, stick control exercises and flowing around the drums,
Yeah.
directly applicable. You know what I'm saying? Being able to move around the drum set like this, I wouldn't be able to do that if I did not know how to do scrapes and suicides and all that stuff. It made it really easy to transfer. From a timing perspective, if you are in DCI and you play quads, when you're in that warm-up arc or you're on the field, the timing, a lot of times you have to be playing like almost in front of the metronome. And you rehearse like 1,000 hours for these shows, and that can drill in a very sterile time feel when it comes to playing drum set. So that's something you kind of have to beat out of yourself, and it took me years to do that. So that's a tough thing, but if you can get over that hurdle, pretty much everything else like that. Like stick control stuff, stick control exercises, moving around the drums, those work really, really great on the drum set as well. Obviously, any diddle exercises work great, especially if you're playing like some funky stuff and you're doing like, you know, dancing hi-hats and stuff like that. You know, being able to get a good diddle quality on quads, especially like the big boys drum 4.
Yeah.
You can do that on a hi-hat. Your hi-hats are going to sound like machine guns.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Boy, that's so great to have. What is it that, you know, a lot of marching or DCI, you know, drummers don't necessarily evolve to drum set.
Yeah.
How do we make that more prevalent where we can get, because they've got great hands, they've got great chops. How do we bring them from DCI to drum set? How do we make that connection?
Well, I think quite simply, it's going to take more drummers that have made the transition, giving knowledge and being okay with kind of sharing their story on how they did it. Because when you're in the activity, there is no conversation about what you're going to do after the activity. The only conversation is getting the book as clean as possible and doing what you have to do that. You know, whatever the technique is, whatever. And it can hurt you. If you decide you want to play drum set afterwards, man, like some of the greatest DCI drummers I've ever, some of the craziest hands I've ever seen and heard in my life, you know, they sit down on a drum set and it, you know, unfortunately it just doesn't work because they have that drum corps, like just, you know, they don't have the ability to flow. Yeah. So I think that the best way is until more lines approach their teaching and the knowledge that they're giving their students, until we have more people kind of like, you know, the Murray Gussicks and the Glenn Crosbys and the Ralph Hardemans.
Yeah.
Until we get more people like that, it's going to take guys like myself. And there's some other cats that are doing a really good job at it too, just sharing their story and also, you know, maybe doing some content or doing some sort of, I don't want to say panel, but just giving knowledge on how to make the transition. Because as of right now, there virtually is no, like, for instance, when I left drum corps, I was on my own. I just had to figure out how to do it. There was no one that can help me because I didn't know anyone that went from drum corps to industry drumming.
So are there books that you mentioned Stick Control, which is a real classic book. Are there any other books that you have that you work on or that you have gone through that you can suggest?
I used to work out of the Whaley book.
Garwood Whaley, Garwood Whaley, great stuff.
Yep, I used to just but I would do that really just to keep my reading sharp. I would never practice those excerpts. I would just open the book and just try to play them down. Right. For me, even though this day and age, at least in my industry, you're not doing a lot of gigs where you got to read charts down. But what I do think it's a brain buster and it keeps your brain sharp. So that, you know, if you're in a rehearsal or something like that, and they say, we want to make a change and we got to make this change for this show tomorrow, your brain is just conditioned to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And as arbitrary as it sounds, sight reading rudimental stuff will get you there. It'll definitely get you there. So those are the two main books that I work out of. And honestly, the Stick Control book itself, I have not even made my way through that entire thing. Like, it's not easy.
Yeah. That book, I've had the honor of working with George Lawrence Stone's descendants, his grandchildren.
Wow.
George Lawrence Stone passed away in the mid-1960s. His children passed away before the year 2000. And it is his grandchildren that I work with in the re-edition of the book Stick Control, and we re-engraved the book. And they are continuing the traditions of George Lawrence Stone, who was just a brilliant teacher in the Boston area. You mentioned Berkeley and Boston.
Awesome.
He was in the Boston area. And his stuff, if you can imagine, that book was written in 1935, and it is still the #1 selling hand technique book in the world. And still people are still going through it.
Yeah.
all these
Yep.
great drummers are still going through it, which I use in my teachings literally every lesson. So it's amazing how that book really is a core of what we need to get our sticking together. The book is called Stick Control.
Yeah.
You want stick control, you
Yeah.
follow it. And he mentions something in the beginning part of the book. He mentions about how the book was written in calisthenic form.
Mm.
And I kind of like what he said there. Calisthenic form means each page he's adding something more to challenge you. So going to the book, I take my students through every single page of that book to complete the book, because there are some really great passages in there that he wasn't a drum set player, but yet there's so much you can pull out from drum set from that book, of course, from drum corps and classical studies. So, but that's a great book to have to go through in the process.
It's a great book. And then there's actually, so what I'll also do is I will take, you can go to different drum corps websites and you can purchase their like their audition packets or previous year's books. And what I'll do is I'll buy those books, learn them, and I'll learn all three parts. Okay, and try to figure out a way. And then I'll watch like the YouTube video and figure out a way how I can take all three and kind of make them into a groove or use them as inspiration for, coloring different groups. Because, especially today, man, some of these groups are doing some pretty innovative stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for the next way to sound original. And because drum corps is such kind of a cult community, it's infinite inspiration there that no one else is going to know about. So I try to do that as much as possible. And then lastly, not to bring him up too many times, but my guy Glenn Crosby, he sends me exercises where simply he has these paradiddle exercises that it's the same sticking over and over, but the accents change. And I actually did a video on my Instagram page demonstrating it, and it is a brain buster.
Boy, that is great.
But when you get through it, sitting down on the drum set, all of a sudden it's like magic. All of a sudden your brain is just open to like vocabulary that you hear in your brain and you feel like you can't get it out physically. It just starts to come out.
Well, that is some great stuff. I'll for sure look at that. Are you familiar with George Lawrence Stone's second book, Accents and Rebounds?
I have not gone into that one yet.
Check that out, because what he does is he takes a page and has the same accent pattern, but changes the sticking.
Oh, wow.
All of a sudden now, where those upstrokes and downstrokes are, each pattern changes, although it's the same accent pattern. Because of the sticking, it kind of stretches your mind that way too.
Wow.
Accents and rebounds and that, and take a look at that.
That's the next one I did.
Good for you. I love how the fact that you are still, as a student of the art form, you're still researching, you're still checking different things out, you're still trying different ideas. That is such a great mentality and attitude to be at, which is beautiful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I at the end of the day, I'm a music lover and a music nerd first, man. Like I love listening to music just as much as I love playing it or creating it. You know what I mean?
Boy, that's so beautiful. Now, here's a kid. We've got a person from Italy here. I'm an Italian artist. I'm 23 years old and I play drums since I am 3. I have a master's degree. My dream is to be directed and followed to give my best in the United States. So what do you say to someone like that wants to come from a foreign country and wants to enter? What kind of advice do you give them on what they can do?
In my travels, I've seen that there are great musicians all over the world. I think sometimes here in America, we kind of get wrapped up here in our own thing, and we think that we're the killing cats, and that's all it is. But that's just absolutely not true. So what I would say to you, man, is like, you want to come over here, bring what you have, and just bring that over here and kind of contribute. Don't change who you are, but yeah, you don't want to do a little bit of adapting. And by doing that, I would say, once we can again, get out, man, and go listen to people, go see live shows, man. Like YouTube is great. It's amazing, but there's nothing like being up close to a proficient drummer and watching him go to work and feeling that energy and seeing how he moves. For some reason, it that makes it more realistic and applicable. So Get out, see shows, and soak up as much as you can, and be true to yourself, and you'll be doing what you want to do in no time.
Well, that's great. And even if they're in a foreign country, there is some great stuff that they can check out on the internet that's going to really give them inspiration to be prepared. So when someone does come to America, they have a better idea of the enormity of what DCI and drum corps world is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because to go back to DCI, man, like it's such a diverse community. So many members from Japan, so many members from Europe, all over the place, and they come to America because the DCI community is such. It's done at such a high level that they try to do it in other places, but I think also DCI has been around for so long here since the late 30s, I believe, early 40s.
Yeah.
So they just kind of they pretty much mastered the art of it. So that's why cats come. You have a lot of international cats coming over to do that. So yeah, man, like you have options, man. You can do it. You can do literally whatever you want to do.
And research people you name, like we mentioned, Ralph Hardiman or Dennis DeLucia. These are people that you want to go back and research. Listen, I had a chance of hearing Ralph do an event when we were in Ohio together. His playing and his wisdom of what he does is just so deep.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Really amazing stuff.
I had the pleasure and the honor of working under him. He hired me in 2012. He was writing the music for the Blue Knights Drum and Bugle Corps based out of Denver, Colorado. So I was able to just kind of be up under him and without being annoying, pick his brain as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I learned so much, on the field in rehearsal, but also just his mentality on what it takes to, be successful in this industry, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
He's the dude he deserves every accolade he's ever gotten and more. Because, I mean, if it wasn't for him, DCI would not look the way it does today.
Absolutely. Listen, he's earned the reputation that he has, which is so deep as the legend that he is. And even guys like Dennis DeLucia, these guys were guys that really had the vision of building what drum corps is today. And listen, like I always say, you got to go back and do the research if you want to find out where you're going. So you got to go back and do the research of where these guys came from and learn from them.
Yes, sir. History is important.
It really, really is. Listen, Jeff Lang, check this out from Jeff Lang. Dom, so happy that you both connected and that Al's making it happy. He's a great guy and a killer player. So Jeff was able to be on the road with you, organizing, you doing those gigs and what you did, and just having the expertise and the guidance of someone like Jeffrey Lang is an incredible strength that you have developed from pulling it from his mind and then taking it your own way and adapting it. Beautiful.
Absolutely. I remember I would do I had a drum solo every night on the set, and he would be right there side stage checking out the solo, and I always knew if the solo was like up here, or if it was just so. He would let me know in his own very, very nice way. I could tell if I really, really nailed it, or if it was like, I think you got better.
Well, what great advice. Here's a gentleman here. This is Todd Morty. And these are people, listen, these are people from everywhere around the world here.
That's awesome.
Tune in for you. This is some really awesome stuff. Been working on getting a studio set up for virtual lessons, and any and all ideas are a huge help. So what you've already shared so far is really great for someone to get, camera set up and mic set up. There's a lot of what interface you need. There's a lot to do the research on that.
Yeah. So, if I guess I could go down a gear list. Obviously, you need a drum set. You need to invest in as good a mic as you can get, but you don't need to break the bank. I suggest for good studio quality, you can for home or remote studio, you can get like Sennheiser E604s are great for toms. You need 57 for the mic. Get as good a mic as you can. But if all you can afford is Audix or whatever, then get those too, because these days drums are so doggone processed. Given what producer you're working with, they can make it work. It's really you want a clear signal from your drums to your board. That's what's going to get you the calls again. And at that point, dude, I mean, you need to get either a mixing board. You can get like a Personas. That's a really user-friendly digital board. Or you can get like a Scarlett interface. You can go straight into it. That works really well too. But essentially, you get a mixing board or an interface with enough channels, depending on how big your kit is. And at that point, you're all set up. Now, getting the sessions is a little more complicated. Use social media. Let everyone know that you're open for remote sessions. And if you have any producer friends, you know, if you're really just getting into the game, offer to do some tracks for free. You're like, you know, hey man, I'll record these drums for free, and if you like them, man, please spread the word. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. Like, you can't have pride when in a situation like this, when you're trying to get something you've never done off the ground, and we're in unprecedented times where this is a lot of people's only option to record drums.
Yeah. Boy, they're so great. And people here too. I mean, this is Greg, who's phenomenal drummer from Poland. I mean, you know, you're being listened to loud and clear. Check this out.
Wow. Hello.
From Moscow. So we've got some people that are here that are listening out to what you're saying. And listen, your family should be very proud of what you have done here. You have really kind of opened up this world of allowing people to step into your life, and you're out there. Just tell me what it's like when you're on the road with all these different artists, to maintain yourself, your sanity, your health on the road, what it's like being on the road to kind of keep it all together. How do you hold it all together?
Man, I'm very militant on the road. I set up a schedule for myself, especially if it's a bus tour. I like to get up at a certain time. I have my tea in the morning. I go exercise. You know, I try to limit, you know, everyone likes to have a good time on the road, but it's like, if you do it, you know, every show can't be a party or you're going to crash. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you want to have a drink, you know, make it a 2-3 drink minimum, you know what I'm saying? Or unless it's a special occasion, like some big show and you got 2 days off afterwards. But the road is rigorous, man. So to stay sane, for me, it's exercise. That's a huge stress relief for me, releasing the endorphins. And the stronger my body feels, the more I'm able to put up with, you know, different personalities, you know what I'm saying? You know, sound checks that, you know, go long or whatever, you know, everyone's tour is different, but, you know, obviously if you're like in a van tour or something like that, you may not have the same thing. But if you're like, I've done van tours, it's been a while, but I've done van tours. And even back then, you got to figure out a way to make the tour feel normal, feel as close to like you're at home as possible. So, you know, bring snacks so you're not always having to stop at Mickey D's to eat, you know, trail mix, nuts, fruit, anything you can to just keep your body at its optimum level. That I'm really big into health and wellness. And I think that anyone that's open to it should check that out, because that's the key to getting through a 6-week or 2-month tour without losing your brain or just turning into a complete lush and just drinking it down every single night, you know, because it is stressful. It's not easy.
Well, you know, when you mention militant, what you're saying is you are a very disciplined person.
Oh yeah,
that is huge for everyone to hear. It takes that level of discipline, and discipline means self-control.
Yes, sir.
We have to set the standard for what we take into our body and how we treat ourselves to be prepared, because it all comes down when you sit behind that drum set, you have to deliver.
And it's expected. You know what I'm saying? It's expected. And the touring world is not for the faint of heart. Like, if you don't do your job, and especially if your management, the artist or whatever, if they feel like they have all the tools, you know, you're put up in a nice hotel, you have a nice bus, whatever. If you do not perform, you will get sent home, because there's 50 other guys that are ready to come and take your job. You know what I'm saying? So
big time.
And I don't like to. I hate to go down that road because it's kind of morbid, but it's the harsh truth that everyone wants to play music. Everyone does, and it's the little things that keep you in the game. Like if lobby calls 7 a.m., be down there 6:50. You know what I'm saying? Like if sound checks 3 o'clock, just be there. Just be there at 3 o'clock. You know, none of the strolling in late, being unprepared, or coming in hungover and in a bad mood. That's just not going to work.
Well, those are basic fundamental life skills that if you want to be successful, you've got to balance it with really smart and high levels of integrity, which is clearly what you're doing, Al. You really are doing that.
Trying to. I mean, I'm not perfect. I remember there was one tour I did a show, and like I told myself, like I'm tired, I shouldn't go out, but the whole band and the artist wanted to go out, and like, so if the artist wants to go out, you kind of can't really say no.
Yeah.
So I went, and man, we had an early lobby call. I was on time for the lobby call, but I just was not a pleasant person. So I had to put the headphones on and I needed to check out for a little while. And then I got through it. And then I was like, I apologize to everybody. Sorry if I was quiet this morning. I just wasn't feeling it. I'm good now. We can get back to rocking.
Listen, that's great that you have some great, you're honest with yourself and you're honest with people around you. And that's why they want to travel with you. That's why they want to hire you. You're a good person. You're a great player. You're open-minded. You've got all the qualities that are needed for truly a long career in this industry.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to, man. I love music. I love playing the drums. And as far as these quad drums have been a part of my life for a long time. And I always excelled in the DCI and the marching world. The drum set, on the other hand, for a long time, I did not believe that I could make a living doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For a long time, I just didn't do it. So I want to play as long as I possibly can. So I'll do whatever I need to do to stay in the game, you know?
Well, good for you, man. Well, if you can, there's so many people that have logged on. If you get a chance later on Facebook, go back there and you can respond to everybody and,
yes, sir.
The wall for sure, and open up a dialogue. This is so great. We've got so many people that have joined us in. You've done great, Al. It's been great to have this time with you. And on behalf of Mapex, to have this level of being able to use this platform on the Mapex Facebook page. And of course, this will go back to the Mapex YouTube channel. So I ask everyone, go to the Mapex YouTube channel and subscribe to be a part of it. All these interviews are there that we can have to have further inspiration and to further share.
Awesome, man. Dom, thank you so much for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Good, man. I'll keep it well. We'll do it again for sure in the future. To everyone that's been listening, thank you so much. You've done great, Al. We'll touch base. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right now.